I know of very few people who love anger, and maybe that makes me one of those few weirdo therapists who delights in it. Okay, well, sort of delights in it. It's a massively misunderstood emotion that is vital for our survival, motivation, and getting our needs met. And yes, of course, it can be destructive and violent, and let's face it, nobody likes it when anger is directed at them, which makes it kind of scary for most people. Yet, as a therapist, I encourage it in my clients, and in particular, I encourage them to express anger towards me. In this video, I'm going to explain why I consider that a success with some clients and how I help clients express anger and why. I'm going to explain the anger spectrum to you to give you a framework on how to think about anger. I'm going to talk you through the Anger Iceberg worksheet that I created, and that's a free resource that you can download from my website. I'll put the link somewhere around there. And if you're a therapist, stick around until the end and I'll explain an activity I would have clients do that works for groups and individuals as well as teenagers. If you don't know me, my name is Oliver and I'm a clinical director, a clinical supervisor, and I have a private practice here in Los Angeles, California. If you find this video useful, I would love it if you hit subscribe, and more importantly, leave me a question or a comment below because I want to know what other kinds of videos you would find helpful. Let's go on this journey together through the spectrum of anger, and I'll talk you through the ways anger is expressed and experienced at each stop on the chart so you can see how psychological health is expressed and developed. So first of all, let's talk about self-directed anger. This is when anger is turned inwards, and you might have heard the expression that anger turns inward leads to depression. In my clinical experience, I definitely see this as one of being the main causes of depression and anxiety. I conceptualize it with the visual of someone angry, yelling at me, berating me, degrading me or my client, and I can relate to this personally every time I lose something. Now, with someone yelling at you all the time in your head, with every slip up you make, it's bound to have an impact on how you feel.
Where's the lamb sauce?
Anger turned inward results in guilt, even self-harm. It's like this boomerang we throw at others, but it kind of comes back to hit us. It's a form of self-punishment that can lead to feelings of worthlessness and depression. So when a client can move from keeping their anger from bouncing back on themselves and start keeping it directed outward, that's a really big shift. When anger can start to be directed at others, we are actually moving along the spectrum to the next step. This is the expression of anger that we imagine right away. It includes the types of behaviors that can manifest as verbal or physical aggression. These behaviors are very different from the feeling, and I think we confuse the two quite often. Behaviors that are a result of anger is not the same thing as anger as a feeling. So when someone slams doors or throws things or calls you names, that's essentially acting out on the feeling. And acting out is that phrase we use when toddlers have meltdowns or temper tantrums. And essentially, no matter how old you are, if you're yelling or being mean, you're kind of acting like a toddler. It's acting out. Now, to be fair, I think we all might do this a little bit because anger has a bit of a regressive effect on us. And sometimes we kind of do act like tantruming kids when we're angry. But it is still acting out, it's still kind of childish. So while expressing anger like this is an improvement from keeping anger inside, it's still not particularly evolved, and there's more work to be done in terms of psychological maturity. Anger is a big reaction, so this does take some practice, especially when that feeling is coming up as a reaction to perceived threats or injustices. It's a bit of a defense mechanism, a way to protect ourselves by puffing up and getting into really primitive fight mode. Some of you might be interested to know how I handle this as a therapist when a client is getting mad at me. When I encourage a client to be angry at me, I do know somewhere in the back of my head that I can put a boundary down. It's never okay for a client to act out and throw things without your permission, I guess. You have the right to protect yourself and set the frame for the way things are going to go into a session. So a client might be able to yell and punch a pillow, but that's the limits of it. When things get really heated, I have been known to raise my voice and yell at clients to sit down or tell them to stop. Now, I'm never out of control when I do this. I'm not being mean. I'm simply being very assertive and letting my client know what I will and will not tolerate. Remember, acting out is what kids do, and sometimes that means you have to be mean mummy or mean daddy and say, enough! If the anger coming at me is in the form of personal attacks, it's a bit trickier because as a human being, I'm going to have a reaction to that. It doesn't feel good, right? And my own anger might sneak up and want to retaliate. Now, over the years, I've noticed that I've kind of put this shield up. It's like I've become the mountain or something. Nothing really gets through to my feelings because it's not actually about me when the mountain is up. I work psychoanalytically, and whatever is going on in the session with the client is about the client. And it's their feelings, their experience, and I'm being paid to help them understand that. So I get curious. And that was the really big tip I got from my supervisor and mentor, is to just get curious whenever a client gets angry. Becoming the mountain or becoming curious makes it easier for me to intellectualize things, to step away from my own feelings and start wondering, why are they calling me incompetent? Why are they accusing me of not caring? Who am I being to them right now? What are they trying to convey to me that's going on, and what's going on in their inner world that I have to understand? I sort of sidestep my own reactions in that. That's a good place to segue back into anger being expressed with some awareness of how it impacts others. When we understand or begin to understand the impact of our anger on other people's is a step towards healthier expressions of anger. It's less narcissistic, right? When you've got an awareness of other people, it's less narcissistic. We're able to get into what Melanie Klein called the depressive position. We see other people as being good and bad. It's not just about self. When we have some awareness of how anger impacts other people and the people around us, we're less likely to be mean or vindictive, which would be hurtful to other people's. We might be quicker to apologize. We might be more remorseful if we slam doors or throw things. So at the final end of this spectrum is the healthy expression of anger. This is the goal. This is when we express our anger in a way that is respectful to ourselves and to other people. It's when we communicate our feelings of anger rather than act out on them. And hopefully in the mix, we're able to communicate our needs too. Whenever anger is a tool for communication, we're able to express our needs and set boundaries. It's when we can channel the energy of our anger into positive actions like standing up for ourselves, getting our needs met, advocating for change. So I think a way to put all of this together is to imagine that I've got a client in therapy with me, and for some reason they are fuming at me because the office is too cold. Anger kept inwards would be something like the client's inner narrative being something like, you are such an idiot for not bringing a sweater with you. It's always so cold in here. You should have known better. And God damn it, what is wrong with you? Just to be clear, I wouldn't hear any of that as the therapist. That would all be going on inside the client. This is very much blaming the self. And sure, part of that could be true. Maybe you do need to bring a sweater if the AC is particularly cold, but it's also my job to take care of the client. It's my job to set up the room and to make sure it's warm enough. So in theory, the client should be angry at me because I didn't take care of them. I would really want that client to be able to express that frustration at me for not getting the temperature right, for not taking care of them, rather than keeping it inside. So I would consider an improvement being when the client is able to express their anger towards me. That might look like, do you not get it? God damn it, you're such an idiot. How do you not know that I'm freezing in every goddamn session in here? You're so incompetent. This anger is aimed at making me feel small. It's a personal attack on my competence, my lack of caring, or my inability to read minds. Anger with awareness might sound like, why is it so goddamn cold in here? Every goddamn session, you might want to do something about that. That's again an improvement. There's no personal attack there. I would be able to quite easily figure out that the client wants it to be warmer, but that is still not the same as a healthy communication of anger. So a healthy communication of anger might sound like, could you please turn up the heat in this room? It's freezing, and I am really annoyed at you for not noticing that, for not taking care of my needs, and I really want you to do something about it. A comment like that would be really well received by me. It's a clear request. I don't have to mind read anything. It uses an I statement. I feel annoyed. There's no acting out. There's no name calling. There's no attacks. So for me, that is how anger is expressed healthily. There's little chance that it will make me or anyone feel defensive because it's not particularly aggressive, it's assertive. I think we're all much more likely to handle someone being annoyed at us than being able to handle being yelled at or called names. We can continue this example to explore the anger iceberg and the worksheet that goes with it. You can download that from mypeoplepatterns.com. I think the link is in the bio somewhere. So in this situation, the client expressed anger about the room being too cold. That's the tip of the iceberg. That's the visible part of their anger that's immediately apparent. However, like the iceberg, the majority of what is driving that anger is hidden beneath the surface. There might be a range of other feelings or emotions. The client might be physically feeling uncomfortable or physically distressed due to the cold, and that could be leading to feelings of irritation and frustration. They might also be feeling disrespected or not cared for, and if they perceive that their comfort hasn't been considered, that also might drive the anger. And these feelings, of course, could be intensified because the client's in a vulnerable space and I'm supposed to be taking care of them and I'm not. The worksheet that I put together around the anger iceberg also explores how unmet needs are connected with anger. And I think when our needs aren't met, we can sometimes feel angry. And that's why we say anger can be about resource gathering. It motivates us to get our needs met. And the unmet needs in this situation could include the need for physical comfort, the need to feel cared for and considered, to feel safe and comfortable. And those could be difficult emotions and experiences to express directly, so we get angry. The worksheet also includes core beliefs, which can sometimes play a part in anger too. So if this client held a belief that they don't deserve to be comfortable or that their needs aren't important, that could be exacerbating anger too. Alternatively, they might believe that it's important to stand up for their needs and rights, which could be driving them to get righteously angry at me about the temperature of the room. In this scenario, the anger iceberg helps us understand that the client's anger isn't just about the room being too cold. It's a complex emotional response driven by a range of underlying emotions and unmet needs and core beliefs. And I think anger is like this gateway into a whole understanding of what goes on in the client. When a therapist can help someone explore those hidden depths beneath the iceberg and we can work together and understand the roots of what goes on, I think that's where healing occurs. So finally, as a little icebreaker, see what I did there? I've included in the PDF an activity inspired by T.N. Dayton, and it's called the Floor Anger Spectrum. It's a safe and contained experiential method that allows clients to delve into emotions and self-regulation. This was always a hit when I did it when I was running treatment centers for teenagers. It gets clients moving, it gets clients talking. It's a go-to for me. So the idea is that clients answer the questions that you ask by navigating around the room or through the anger spectrum to stand next to and identify with the type of anger that we've just discussed. So the beauty of this activity is that it not only helps clients identify feelings and understand them, but also encourages them to put those feelings into words. It's this process of translating feelings into language that is this powerful tool for emotional regulation and affect regulation and improving emotional literacy. I've included a bunch of process questions that you might want to ask your clients. You can do this in a group setting, obviously, or with individual clients. And the questions are things like which of the 4 types of anger did your caregivers show the most of while growing up? Or which of the 4 types of anger are you most afraid of? So these are quite thought-provoking questions that you can imagine will bring up a lot of points to process and understand. And if you do it in a group setting, then you're really facilitating connection between peers because you want to get your clients responding to what other people said in the group, sharing sort of how they felt and how it impacted them. Okay, so I hope that helps you understand anger a little bit better. Please hit subscribe, leave me a comment, and I will keep these videos coming.